Evan's mornings were always precise. The alarm went off at 6, he showered, brewed his coffee, and laced up his sneakers for a jog down the quiet streets near his apartment. But today, something felt slightly off. The air smelled sharper, the city quieter than usual, and a small black briefcase sat unassumingly in the corner of his lobby. Evan froze, instinctively recognizing that he had never seen it before. Despite every warning instinct in his body, curiosity nudged him forward. He approached and opened it. Inside lay a single, unmarked envelope and a small digital recorder, blinking red. Against better judgment, he pressed play. The static crackled, then a calm, almost soothing voice said, "You're the next one. Make the choice." A shiver ran down his spine. Just opening the briefcase, one action, had already started a chain of events he couldn't yet comprehend, a chain that promised to unravel everything he had ever considered normal about his life. The lobby, once mundane, felt suddenly threatening, the shadows stretching unnaturally along the walls, the hum of the city outside strangely muted. Evan stared at the envelope, heart hammering, realizing that even a small, seemingly inconsequential act could trigger consequences far beyond his understanding. By mid-morning, Evan could feel the weight of unseen eyes pressing down on him. Every pedestrian on the street seemed to pass him with subtle, knowing glances, and the man in the grey coat appeared again, always lingering just beyond his vision. His phone buzzed relentlessly, calls from his friend Lila going unanswered, texts unsent. Every instinct screamed that something had changed irreversibly. Returning to his apartment, Evan noticed small but disturbing anomalies. His coffee cup was now on the floor when he swore he had left it on the counter, the window he had left open was now locked, and shadows stretched longer than they should, gathering in corners like living things. The briefcase and envelope had triggered this subtle warping of reality, and with each passing moment, Evan understood that one action could spiral outward, touching not just him but the people he cared about, his city, and perhaps the very fabric of his life itself. The quiet hum of the apartment felt tense, almost sentient, as though the walls themselves were waiting, watching for his next move. The next day Evan tried to escape, thinking distance might reset the mounting tension. On the crowded city bus, he spotted a woman sketching fervently in a notebook, her hand moving faster than his eyes could follow. Glancing over, he realized with a jolt that the sketches mirrored scenes from his apartment, the subtle movements of objects he hadn't noticed, shadows stretching unnaturally, even the angle of the briefcase he had found. He tried to speak to her, but she vanished in the blink of an eye at the next stop, as if she had never existed. Returning home, Evan found Lila's apartment door ajar, papers strewn across the floor, the faint smell of coffee lingering as if untouched. She was gone. In her place, a note, "Do not ignore it. One choice changes everything." Panic coiled in his chest, and Evan realized the horrifying truth: one small, seemingly insignificant action could ripple outward uncontrollably, entwining the lives of everyone around him in consequences he could not anticipate. He paced his apartment, narrating his thoughts aloud, desperately trying to anchor himself to reality, but each word felt swallowed by the thickening tension. By evening, Evan's perception of time and space began to fracture. Hallways appeared longer, stairwells subtly shifted, and reflections in mirrors and windows no longer matched his movements precisely. In one mirror, his reflection's lips twitched in words he had never spoken. He began narrating his observations aloud, hoping that acknowledging the discrepancies would anchor him, but even his voice seemed to echo wrong, distant, and distorted. The apartment, his sanctuary, had transformed into an unpredictable maze of subtle horrors. Objects, familiar and safe moments ago, now seemed to exist in their own timeline, shifting and twitching when unobserved. Evan's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the consequences of opening the briefcase extended beyond immediate danger. They were warping his perception of reality itself. He was no longer navigating his apartment, he was navigating the effects of a choice he could never undo. The following morning brought no relief. Footsteps pounded outside his apartment, urgent and irregular. The grey-coated man was back, closer this time, following him through the streets and alleys. Every exit Evan tried seemed blocked or subtly altered, streets bending in ways that made no sense. He ducked into a parking garage, lungs burning, heart hammering, but the man was always just a few steps behind, anticipating his every move. Shadows stretched along walls and pillars, unnaturally alive, as if feeding off Evan's fear. He realized the chain reaction his initial action had triggered was now a living threat, manifesting in pursuit and subtle manipulation of the world around him. Survival depended not on speed or strength, but on understanding the full extent of what he had set in motion. Every corner he turned held the possibility of catastrophe. Finally, Evan confronted the grey-coated man in a deserted warehouse at the edge of the city. As the hood was pulled back, he saw Lila's face staring back, eyes empty and unresponsive. Controlled by some unseen force. Panic twisted his stomach as he realized that this confrontation, this forced choice, was the next link in the chain he had begun. An envelope appeared at his feet. Every choice is part of a greater plan. Finish what you started. The shadows in the warehouse seemed to pulse with anticipation, every corner watching, every object ready to respond. Evan's mind raced. Each move could save her or accelerate the danger beyond control. The consequences of one action had escalated to a point where understanding the system behind them was as important as surviving it. Evan's hand shook as he picked up the final envelope. The shadows and distorted light of the warehouse stretched and warped around him, pressing inward. He understood that there was no longer a right or wrong choice, only survival within the consequences already triggered. Taking a single deliberate action, he braced himself. When he opened his eyes, the world appeared calm again. Lila stood beside him, normal, the streets empty, the briefcase gone. Yet Evan knew better. The chain of consequences remained, invisible but ever present, a silent reminder that one action, no matter how small, could alter lives, reality, and fate in ways impossible to predict. He breathed, tense, knowing the lesson would haunt him forever. Choices are never isolated, and sometimes the smallest act can ignite an unstoppable chain reaction that never truly ends.